Well, hey there, my beloved students. Here we are at this weird fall semester. I'm going to warn you, these recordings are long and rambly, and I'm sorry, but this is the best I can do. It's still shorter than coming to the first period of class, though, and me going through the whole spiel. What I'd like you to do is you can pull up your copy of the syllabus that's on your Blackboard under the syllabus link where you find this video, or you can just follow along and have a notebook. Write down questions you have as I'm moving through this. And on the very first day of class, we're not going to go over the syllabus, but it will definitely be a time where I'll go over questions. So don't ask questions if you haven't read this or watched this. But once you have watched this all, I do want to deal with questions. All right, this is current events and world movements. Fun class. It moves very, very quickly because it is current. And as you may have noticed, the world moves rapidly, and so far all of my requests and appeals that it just slow down have gone unheeded. So dictators and tyrants and diseases just don't seem to want to cooperate with us very much. So we have a lot to cover, and we got to keep up. And so this is not a hard course. In fact, content-wise, it's probably one of the easiest courses I have. It feels maybe hard because it moves very, very quickly. There's a lot of little things to keep up with each week. But if you can just develop your schedule and keep up with it, you'll be fine and do very well and learn a lot. All right. Textbooks. You do need to procure two of the least expensive textbooks in the world. Half the Sky by Christoph and Wu Dun. Nicholas Kristof, a Pulitzer Prize journalist who's at the New York Times. He is probably the preeminent journalist out there today. He is the guy who gets the interviews with the Kim Jong-uns and the head of ISIS or whoever is the person to be interviewing. He's that guy. And his wife is Cheryl Wu Dun, also a well-respected and well-published journalist. And a while back, they took a sabbatical, traveled around the world, did some research, and wrote it up. And the research was, how are women doing? Because the assumption is we could tell how a country or a culture or a group of people are doing based on how the women are faring in their society. This is not a new idea. God knew this. Back in the Old Testament, he says, I don't have to know about your sacrifices or all this stuff. He says, I'm just going to check with the widows and the orphans. And if they're doing well, I know you're worshiping me properly. If they're not doing well, he says, I'm going to listen to their cries and not your prayers. You can go back to Isaiah 1 and get that real clearly. So this book was a bestseller for a couple of years, and so that means millions of people bought it, read it, and then put it on Amazon used. So you can get it for sometimes 24-25 cents. You'll definitely pay more for shipping than you will for the book itself. It is a fun and easy read. Every semester, I have students who say, I am going to use this as Christmas gifts to my friends or my family. Parents like to read it with us. It's story-based, so it's very interesting. You won't even feel like you're reading research. So you do need to get this. Every single week, you will have a quiz over the next chapter. So there's no not reading this and doing very well in the class. The other very inexpensive little book is called Good News About Injustice. It's right here by Gary Haugen. Gary Haugen is one of my heroes and a good colleague. He is the founding president of the International Justice Mission, which is the largest Christian human rights organization in the world. It's one of the largest human rights organizations, period, and it does happen to be decidedly Christian. Gary Haugen has been advisor for human rights to several presidents. Not sure about that he's advising Trump, but up to Obama he certainly was. He is always at the Davos Forum, which is the wealthy and powerful leaders of industry and politics, and they gather, and he advises them on human rights issues. And certainly at the United Nations, he's well known as a scholar and an activist. You'll read his story, and then this is a theodicy. Theodicy is a fancy word that says, if God is so good, and he is all-powerful, and he's in control of the world, why is it that things are so bad? And so when we face injustice or we're reading about it or thinking about it, I mean, it's awful. And as a Christian, I have to say, okay, God, why are you allowing this? Are you allowing it? Are you in control? Aren't you? Are forces of evil more powerful than your good? How do I make sense of this? And so in a very simple, accessible way, Haugen leads us through a theodicy, a way of understanding who is God, how does he respond to injustice. And so I use this book in conjunction with Half the Sky and then our weekly news, because we need to keep our heart and mind close to God as we travel through some really difficult stories and stuff that's going on in our current world. And then The Economist here, I will provide that for you. You may have noticed when you signed up for this class, there's a lab fee, and that covers the subscription of The Economist. Normally, I would hand you a paper copy like this every week, and then we have articles that I assign, you read, and there's a quiz. Since we're not together in person, I will give you a code, a digital code, or I won't, they will, and you will log on and be able to access the articles. What I can do is, some of you are actually on campus, and I can make sure that we get hard copy for those of you who are, because some of you, including me, I prefer hard copy. But we'll work that out, because I don't want to end up with 120 weekly magazines that I have to get rid of every week. What you should know about The Economist, it is the premier news magazine, print news magazine in the world. Actually, print or digital news magazine in the world is often considered the gold standard of actual news. And so it's on the desk of any Fortune 500 executive, of every politician. If you walk into a first class of an airplane that's flying with businessmen and businesswomen, often you'll see them reading this. I have had many students who they're reading it, and someone comes up to them and is like, wow, I'm so impressed. So you have a right to feel categorically superior to other people because you read The Economist, because this is what superior people read. Again, I'll be assigning articles each week. I will post the articles on Blackboard, and we'll go over them in class, and then you'll read them, and I'll quiz you on that. So I'll talk about those quizzes in a little bit. That's all the text you need. The Economist you've already paid for in your course registration. Half the Sky and Good News, you can probably get both of them for under $10, and you do need both of them, and you need them quickly. Our first quiz will be, the first week of school. We're going to read and start quizzing, so I really would like you to get those very, very quickly. I'm going to come back to grading, because this is referring to things you don't know about yet. I do have 2 sections of this course, so I use the same syllabus for both sections. All right, I'm going to put my little video right over where my picture was. Oh, there we go. So, attendance, super important part of every course I teach, particularly this course. Let me start with why I make attendance such an important part of every course. Couple of assumptions in teaching. One is that I know stuff that you don't know and that you need to know. And there's multiple ways I can transfer what I know to your head, but the easiest is if we just talk together. I tell you, oh, here's what I know about Lebanon, or about China, or about the Philippines, and here's what you need to know to make this story make sense. And then you nod, and I can see your eyes connecting, and you're asking questions, and you're putting stuff in the chat, and then I know you know. If we don't have that, then the other option I have is I just have to test you over everything and say, here's what you need to read, and then I give you a test to make sure you read it. And I don't want to do that, and I don't think you want to do that. It's just much easier if we just have a good conversation during our class time. So I do need you here. The other reason I put it so high in points is we are practicing for the professions. I think all of you probably are going to college for at least the hope of getting a good job, right? And every job I've ever had, I've had to show up. And if I don't show up, I don't get paid. And so when I hear people say, oh, attendance, she gives us points for attendance, that's so high school. No, that's not high school. That's called the work world. So that's professional. That you show up, and when you show up and do what you need to do, I pay you. And so I think it's important that you're with us in our discussion, and so I pay you pretty handsomely. 30% of your grade comes from just logging in or showing up to our class and remaining there for the whole time. I do provide some excused or free absences. I don't need to know why you were or were not in class. If you're not there, I'm going to assume you have a very good reason, and I don't need to know it. So for the Tuesday, Thursday section, you get 3 where it won't affect your grade. But once you hit number 4, it starts to affect your grade. For the Monday, Wednesday, Friday section, you get 4 free. Once you hit absence number 5, it will start to hit your grade. In Blackboard, even your free absences will still show as a 0, but I have it already coded in the little algorithm that tallies up what the final grade is going to be to drop those lowest absences, 3 for the Tuesday, Thursday group, and 4 for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday group. You do not need to consult me about why you're absent. You don't need to send me an email. I trust that you're professionals, you're adults. You know if you have something better to do or something more important, or you're just so sick or whatever. But just know that after the free ones are used up, you will need to, you'll see a reduction in your grade. All right, so this is weird. We're not actually in class together. So last years, I have this nice little classroom etiquette section that says, don't do this, and it's all based on us being together. I even had to tell people no kissing, because one time I had this couple, and they're just in the back row of a large classroom, and they scooch their chairs together, and they're all snuggly buggly, and then they're all smoochy woochy, and it was just insanely embarrassing for all of us. And they're like, apparently you have to tell people not to kiss in my class. But we're doing things so differently now. So now we're looking at, what does the etiquette look like if you're on WebEx? And in the spring, when we had no warning and all of a sudden the semester was canceled and we were in WebEx, it was kind of cute and funny if you had your dog and you were in your bed or in your pool or on your exercise bike or driving or whatever. But those days are over, and now this is school for us. And so I and your other faculty, we've talked a lot about this, we expect that you are dressed in clothes that, whatever we can see should look like real clothes. I don't need to see you in your jammies. And you need to be sitting up, standing up, in full learning mode. You need to have arranged the technology that you need to have a clear connection so I can hear you, see you, and you can hear and see me. You need to have a space that is conducive to learning. So in the spring, it was cute when your dog showed up, and we just, that was fine. This is a different semester now, and so you need to have the animals put away. If there's children, they should have childcare that does not involve you. Those kind of things, because this is as close to going to class as you're going to get. So no, you can't be working at your job and taking this class. I need you in class. You can't be driving during class because it's not safe, and you wouldn't do that if you were physically in my class. So you just need to be properly arranging your life so that you're in class. And don't do stuff that I have to post on Facebook and be like, can you believe this student did that? It's just embarrassing to us all. I do need your cameras to remain on. It is very tempting. It's tempting for me to tune out, but we can't do that. Just like if you were physically in class, you would know I really just can't put my head down and start sleeping, and I can't just walk out. So cameras need to remain on. I do have a WebEx reporting that will tell me when you log in, when you log out, and I'd like you there. Obviously, I can't say no laptops and no phones, but please make sure that you're not doing 3 or 4 other things while I'm lecturing and asking you for feedback. And it's still obvious if you're poking on your phone. Obviously, we're going to know that. The occasional, is not a problem. But when it becomes the pattern, I just make a note of who you are, and then I remove your attendance for that day. And this is so great because in WebEx, you are labeled. I don't even have to try to track down, okay, who's the lady with the red hair and find you and figure out your name. You are labeled. I just quickly jot down that Mary Jones looked like she was busy with a bunch of other things, and then I can take away all or part of your credit. I don't want to do that, but I need you to be motivated to really be engaged, even though we're online. All right, I don't mind if you have a lunch there, if we're having lunch, if it's lunchtime, but obviously be discreet or be, sensitive that we can all see you, and it can be very distracting. All right, let's scooch on. Readings, the books that I have assigned are very easy. They're honestly high school level as far as, reading level, but they're very interesting too. They're story-based, which will really make it more interesting, and they read quickly. But each week I will give you a quiz on chapters. So the first week after we meet, I'll say, okay, on Monday is chapter 1, and it's a short quiz. Since we're not in class together, I will open it up on Blackboard. You'll take it. It is timed. The reason it's timed is I don't want you to just wait till then, look up all the answers. I'd like you to read it as a story or as an entire idea, take a few notes, and then take a quick quiz. So the timing, you should have plenty of time to answer these questions if you've read the book or read the chapter. Because it's story-based, it's really easy to then ask questions such as, Rosa is the main character of this chapter, and what happens to her? Does she do this, or does this happen to her? Or what about the police chief? What does Haugen say this? Or maybe it's a concept that Haugen or the other authors are introducing. According to your authors, what makes the most difference in economic benefit to a village? Is it clean water? Is it access to computer? Or is it bicycles? And maybe the chapter was about how some gal got a bicycle, and that seems to be the most effective way to bring economic health. So it should be pretty obvious stuff if you read it. If you haven't read it, there's not just going to be a situation where you can just quickly flip through pages and look it up. So read these chapters, and then once you log into Blackboard, it will set the timer. You got a few minutes. Like if it's a 4 or 5 question quiz, you have 4 or 5 minutes. I don't want you to read the chapter at that point. All right, that will upload to Blackboard. It will self-grade, and that will be lovely. Honestly, you can do all of the reading for each week in an hour. An hour a week, which is not bad for an upper division course. If you're a very, very slow reader, you maybe give yourself a little bit more time. And then I've mentioned the quizzes. Every class period, you have a quiz, because there's readings that I will have asked you to do for that class period. You will not be surprised. I have a schedule that will do it, so you always know on Tuesday, this is what quiz I have. On Thursday, this is what quiz I have. Or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whichever section you're in. You can always use your notes. But notes are only helpful if you've read your stuff and written down some key ideas. They're not going to be helpful if it's just a photocopy of your book or something. So please really, and I put in here, obviously cheating opportunities increase with independent quiz taking. So I need you to commit to say, hey, I want the most I can get out of this semester. And that means not cheating. And even if Stump doesn't know, you know what? The Holy Spirit knows. And that's even more, important. So don't cheat. Just don't. So read ahead, take some notes, and then you'll take my cute little quiz and you'll be fine. All right. My contact info is here. If you're on campus, do stop by. I'd love to see you. I'm in B211. I guess I forgot to put that on there. Or email me. If you email me, it's very helpful if you put what class you're in, because I have 7 classes, maybe close to 300 students, and it's really makes it more efficient if I know exactly what class you're in when you're asking your question. All right, scooching on down. Assignments. All right. I don't do any large written assignments because, let's be honest, I hate grading, and you probably hate writing, and so I do need you, however, to keep up with current events. And in lieu of some things we used to do in person, what I have done is arranged for small groups that once a week during our class time, and I haven't figured out all the details, but I will, you will be assigned a WebEx section, and you, for 30 minutes, will meet in a small group, probably about 12 to 15 people in the group. And that group leader will lead you through the week's big events and some discussion about them, and probably some time of prayer, and figure out how we can interact with what's going on and why does it matter. So we'll have more on that. This will be during class time. Now, what this does is it means I have to make up this time through recorded videos and stuff. So I have to work on that. But I'll have you in a weekly global events lab. That's your small group that is graded as an important part of your grade. So you need to be there and participate. That's very much the participation element, where you're practicing telling the story that is happening. So right now, a big story is this explosion in Lebanon, in Beirut. And then that has triggered the removal or the resignation of their entire government, the prime minister and all of the cabinet. So I'll teach you about Lebanon and the backstory and where they are, and then we'll keep eyes on what's going on. But in the weekly global events lab, let's say that's kind of the big story for the week. You'll talk about it, maybe practice talking, telling each other, like, okay, this is what's happening, and then your leader will lead you through some ideas on that. The other assignment you have is you're going to watch documentaries, and I have changed it to 9. It used to be 8. I do want to add a 9th one, and you'll see why. In this course, we will be in 4 regions of the world. We'll start out in the Middle East, then we'll move to Africa, then Asia, and then we'll have a very short time on a couple countries in Latin America. And I have you watch 2 documentaries related to anything in each of the regions. So for the Middle East, it doesn't have to be a country we study, although it could be a country we study. Let's say you're interested in Afghanistan, which we will study, and you're wanting to know about women's rights in modern Afghanistan, post-Taliban Afghanistan. There's a ton of documentaries on that. You'll watch one. I'll in class show you where you can get some documentaries, but you'll watch that. A documentary for me needs to be 45 minutes or longer. And as you're watching the documentary, you'll take bullet point notes. You're not reporting what's happening, but you're just saying, oh, this happened and this person did this. And that's just a way of me knowing you actually watched it. And then you'll do 2 for the Middle East. And then when we're in Africa, you'll watch 2 documentaries on anything you're interested about in Africa, not historical. So we're not looking at World War II or, the colonization of Africa. So these should be modern, current issues. You'll do 2 documentary write-ups on Africa, 2 on Asia, and 2 on Latin America. I've added the last one. Oh, I need to change that to 9. The last one is going to be on COVID in some region, preferably not the United States, but unless you find something that's super compelling. But like, how is COVID affecting slums in India? Or how is COVID affecting education in China? Or something. There's a bazillion out there right now. So we can work together on finding the latest, greatest, but that's kind of the current event that has shaped 2020. And so we might as well develop a little bit of expertise on that. So I'll give you more instruction, and as you have questions, you can let me know, and I'll show you where to get good documentaries. I do not prescribe which ones you must watch. I'm really letting you find ones that are of interest to you. You'll write those up and submit those on Blackboard. All right, and then as we go through the semester, I totally will not have enough time in our synchronous classroom for us to watch these little videos that I really need us to watch to kind of help you get backstory or context. So what I will do is post them on Blackboard and have you watch them prior to my next lecture. And I'll put a little quiz or something out there so that I can document that you watched it. And then when you come into class and I'm lecturing about Lebanon, I'll keep referring back to that video. Remember in that video it said this or that. Normally, if I had, face-to-face time, we would just watch them together, but I just don't have the time and the access to do that. So we're going to have you watch them, and that will be an assignment that I'll give you some accountability for. But as you can see, other than reading and the weekly little quizzes, You're going to just go to this lab. You don't need to write up anything. That's just your attendance is your points there. The documentaries, those will be written up in bullet point form. I will help you with that as we go on. And then if I'm posting little videos on Blackboard, I'll be sure you know that. You'll watch them, and we'll have some way of making sure that I know you watch them. You get credit for that. And that's really all that you do. Now, here on this page, I'm going to scooch my face over here. I have written you a love note. For some of you, it's the only love note you'll get all year, so you might as well use it and read it and enjoy it. But I do want you to consider what I have said. And the basic gist is, how come the School of Christian Ministries at California Baptist University is actually giving you 3 units of Upper Division Jesus credit for a course that's about what's going on in the world? The explosion in Lebanon, COVID, the collapse of a government, the economic turmoil of Venezuela, the plight of women in Afghanistan. How is that in any way religious or spiritual? And so I've given you some ideas. At the end of this class, I'd like you to be able to articulate why knowing what's going on in the world has any spiritual value. If you are a Christian, I think you're already making some connections that says this is God's world. He is deeply concerned about it. He loves it. He is sovereign over it. He is restoring and redeeming who we are and what we're doing and what our cultures and communities look like. And if we are Christians, we say, man, whatever God's heart is set on should be what my heart is set on. And we know that God so loved this world. And so for Christians, our interest in what's going on in the world is because we love what God loves. I have a son who, since he was 3 or so, has loved air shows. Now, you can't really see me, and some of you know me, but let me just tell you, I'm not really the air show kind of gal. If you could see me, and I got my little prissy high heels on and my fancy jewelry, I'm not the gal who wants to be out in 100-degree weather, on a tarmac, surrounded by airplane fuel and loud noises. It's just misery for me to be at an air show. And yet, I have gone to dozens and dozens of air shows. I have driven all over, the West Coast to go to air shows. And there's only one reason. It's because my son loves air shows. So that is a reminder to me, why do we study what's going on in the world? Because my Father loves the world. And so I want to love what he loves. If you are not a Christian, your task this semester is to figure out, why do Christians care about what's going on in the world? I mean, isn't it all going to just, end anyway? What is the interest of Christians and the interest of Christ in this world, and how you would respond to that question? So you can read this and then formulate your own thinking. All right, let's scooch it on down. All right, quiz schedule. This is where we're going to be real flexible. My current idea, as of August 13, at 1:15 p.m. when I'm recording this, is that for my Tuesday-Thursday section, Section A, every Tuesday before class, so at 12 noon, the quiz for that week's chapter of Good News About Injustice and that week's chapter of Half the Sky will close at noon. And it's a timed quiz. So let's say I give you 5 minutes to take a 5-question quiz. It will be open for maybe a week, not more than a week. And you need to read, then take it. And I would suggest taking the quiz immediately after you read, because you're going to remember it better. You don't even have to probably take notes. If you wait and you got a lot of other readings you've done, you're going to really be confused. So read, pop on Blackboard, open the quiz, take it, submit it, you're done. And then it has to be done, though, before class on Tuesday each week for a Good News About Injustice and Half the Sky. And the same with The Economist. I'll issue The Economist's assignments. You'll have a week to read them. And then as soon as you finish reading them, you would log on to Blackboard to that quiz, which will be posted. You take it, it is timed, so that means you need to have read it ahead of time. You will not have time to flip through and try to find the right answer. You'll read The Economist, take it, and then that has to be submitted Thursday by noon. Now, and the same for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday section. You would just have one due before class on Monday, one due before class on Wednesday, and the Economist due before class on Friday. I have put this little note here. If this does not work well, for whatever reason, or if I feel like, man, I just have the sneaky suspicion that a whole bunch of people are cheating on this, then I will maybe change the system where I do it where I can really see you all. But I'm really hoping we don't need to take actual class time. And that's up to you. Be people of integrity. You know, honestly, so you miss 3 questions on a quiz. That's so much better than cheating. Like, you know, just don't cheat. All right. Let's go here to the COVID disclaimer. This basically says, in the olden days, we used to say, oh, the syllabus is your contract. Well, no more. There's nothing guaranteed at all. I mean, I'm praying that Jesus just comes. Be ready. So this is how I'm hoping the class will run. We've never done this kind of teaching before, so I may have to adjust. I will never adjust in a way that disadvantages your grade. I will not have unreasonable expectations about last-minute deadlines. I have goodwill to you. I am incredibly fair. I'm very interested in justice, so I'm not going to be in any way disadvantaging you. But I do need us to be flexible, and I expect the same goodwill toward me. If I have to make some adjustments because something's just not working the way I thought it would work, then okay, that's no problem. You can flex. Now, having flexibility, I put here, it's not a lack of structure. It means we do have a strong structure so that when that earthquake comes, like our buildings, it just sways. It doesn't crumble. And so what that means is don't get behind. I may need to adjust some deadlines, but I don't need to adjust them because you got behind. And so you keep up with everything so that we don't just end up with a big hot mess at the end of it. So this is just my disclaimer. I'm going to do my best to stick to what I've got in the syllabus, but there's a whole bunch of unknowns that I can't predict. Now, that is all I have. Yep, that's all I have in my syllabus. There are probably other things I should tell you, but I just can't think of them. What I need you to do is write down all of those questions that you have, and then the very first day of class, I will say, hey, and then I'll say, all right, let's hear how I can clarify things. Oh, I did say I would come back to grading, so here I am. Attendance, I've already said, big part of your points. Your economist quizzes, that comes out to about 1% per quiz or 1% per week. The Half the Sky and the Good News quizzes, there's a certain number of chapters, and that comes out to, I don't know, about 0.8% per chapter. Your documentaries are 20% of the grade. That's the 9 documentaries that you'll watch on your own time. Your weekly Global Events Lab, that's 10% of your grade. About 1% per week, because we'll probably have to have a couple weeks off. And then the assigned videos, that's that catch-all category of stuff I don't have time to show in class, but you need to see. I'll post those, assign them, come up with a way to give you credit, and that will be that 5%. All right. I think I've done what I can do. I would like you to really look through this, be writing down questions. I'm excited to meet with you and to take on the challenge of learning via this WebEx stuff. Be well. I'll talk to you soon.